Thank you so much. So we're going to have our next presentation on rural law. We have Ashley Gibson, who practices in Welland, Eldon Horner, who earlier today described himself as near Montreal, although it's Cornwall as I looked it up on the map in any event, and Gord Prisco, who's from North Bay. And Gord and Ashley are currently on our executive for FOLA, and Eldon has a long history in our organization. So thank you, three of you, for talking about the challenges of rural law.
Well, thanks. The board recognized this year that we'd like to be more interactive with this group. Sometimes we were a little bit preachy or not giving enough red meat to people to take home. I think it's a great opportunity. FOLA is a great opportunity to talk amongst ourselves and go home and learn something. Not only are we learning something from the Law Society or Law Pro or other groups, our sponsors, our great sponsors outside, it's an opportunity for us to learn something for our business. The practice of law is not easy. Nobody got here alone. And so what we thought is that we'd share some of our successes and failures, the three of us, and we'd ask the audience to do the same thing. A little bit about me. I'm a 2010 call. I work at a firm of 8 lawyers in North Bay, Ontario. Catchment area, about 70,000 people. We're one of the larger firms in our area, and it's taken, our practice, or my practice, is mainly real estate, but we offer full service. When I came to the firm in about 2009 or 10, I had an older group of lawyers that were retiring and younger lawyers around me that said, well, this firm's going to fall apart and we're not going to be successful. And I was the one that said, yes, we are going to be successful. And there was just me and the bookkeeper that, she had no choice because that was her job. And I had no choice because I said, well, if we don't make this successful, then I won't be successful. And we've grown it now into the largest firm in the area. I didn't do it alone. Again, as I said, nobody gets here alone. But two of the things that I'd like to share about how I've been successful and how I failed as well are the people around me. How I failed is I didn't get the right people around me when I was taking over our firm, Val & Partners Law Firm in North Bay. And one of the reasons why I was successful is I started to focus on culture and values and focusing on surrounding myself with the people that shared the same culture and values. And that goes for staff and that goes for lawyers. We talked a little bit this morning about the Boralaskan School of Law and the program that they have. We've been very successful in getting lawyers that way. And we've also had some lawyers that, didn't share the same values, and it caused some commotion in our firm that we've now decided, me and a couple other people, that we won't put up with anymore. So that's in a nutshell a little bit about my story, and I know Eldon and Ashley have a little bit more. We'd like to hear from you. I'm going to grab the microphone and walk around the room a little bit, but really this is about success and failure in the law practice and how difficult it is. So I'll turn it over to Ashley or Eldon.
I think we agreed I would go.
Yeah,
Okay.
we did.
Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Gibson. I practice in Fort Erie, which is close to Welland, not quite Welland. I practice in a small firm, Gibson & Wrightbuck. Have one partner who's here, Anthony. Hi. And we have a lawyer starting through the LPP program in January. We are actively looking to expand. When I thought about this, my journey in a small town, the first thing that came to mind was how lucky I was. I'm from a small town, and my parents own a golf course in said small town. So just by the fact that I'm Gibby's daughter, it was pretty easy for me to set up a practice because obviously my dad's good at golf, so I'm going to be a good lawyer. And I had a steady stream of clients, and I think that I'm very lucky, and I acknowledge that not everyone has that. But by way of getting a start, I started at a firm with not a lot of support and instantly realized that my principal wasn't really going to help me build a career or guide me in any way. So I was then voluntold that I was the Fort Erie Bar president, which was basically a lunch club with all my friends' dads. And at our first meeting, they kind of ragged on me, and they said, you know, Gibson, because of you, we can't have our meetings at Platinum anymore, which was the local strip club, because I was female. So it gives you a little bit of the taste of what I was dealing with. The climate in Fort Erie has changed, mostly because of Gibson and Wrightbuck, I think. That was a joke. But through that, I was voluntold to be on the Welland County Law Association and have been a member since my year of call, which was 2008. And don't take that to mean that I'm older than Gord. I am not. He is much older than me. Through that, I met some very important mentors, number one being Jim Stengel. He has come to FOLA a few times. Some of you might know him. And he was crucial in just guiding me through how to be a family law lawyer. I did a lot of family law in articles, but following someone around and doing an assigned task when they're it's hand to hand is a lot different than jumping in and you're the one having to advise people by yourself. So Jim was an integral part of me growing my career and teaching me how to do things. And then Jim died, which was difficult, but I had other options. One, through my OCL connections, was Linda McKenzie, and she was a great resource for me to ask questions. And then she became a judge, and I kind of said to her, well, geez, Linda, Jim's dead and you're a judge, what do I do? And she said, well, Ashley, you're the mentor now. And so that role for me has kind of flipped, and I don't like to admit, but I am senior counsel now and find myself in the role that my mentors started guiding me through. And that leads to just really working on relationships and relationships with other lawyers, with other service providers. Early on in my career, I did a lot of criminal law, some real estate, some wills, and family law. Just because in a small town, you kind of have to do what comes through the door. I've since given up criminal and outsourced the wills to Anthony. He's much better at that type of thing than I am. But making connections within the practice of family law. So I work really closely with a lot of accountants and some therapists. And it's really important to know your role and know what you're good at, especially in family law. A lot of people come to you at a huge crisis and they want you to be their social worker, their therapist. And you have to be really clear about the services that you're trained and able to provide. And again, I rely extremely heavily on other professionals. My brother is a chartered accountant, and he always tells me that I rely far too heavily upon him. And I do, but it's important because, as Anthony can tell you guys all later at the hospitality suite, I know nothing about accounting. I struggle, and it kind of makes me panic. And as my brother points out to me on the daily, it's not normal for your accountant to be able to access your bank accounts and put you on an allowance. But that's what he does for me. And every year when he sends my bill, I text my dad and complain that it's too high. It still hasn't resulted in a reduction. And I point out every year that Anthony's bill is smaller, and he says, well, Ash, Anthony does a lot of his own work. So some of the tips for success, I echo Gord's comments and just about knowing your people. So I kind of alluded to the fact that I started out in a firm that was maybe less than supportive. And as you grow as a lawyer, it becomes a lot easier to kind of know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. Sorry to quote song. But in 2019, that became abundantly clear that I had to make some serious changes in my own practice. And I left the firm that I had been with for 12 years, and kind of on a whim, I think in assignment court one day, Anthony and I decided that we were going to start a new firm. And this was in November of 2019, and we opened January 1st, 2020, and then the pandemic hit. And it was a little bit chaotic, but we work very well together, similar values, we have a similar culture, similar atmosphere type vibe for what we want in the firm. And we hit the ground running really well, and I think we've both become more successful because of that. Anthony had to kind of hold my hand as we started using real technology. I think I was the last person in Niagara to convert from a paper calendar to a phone calendar, and that was because he basically told me it was embarrassing that when one of the younger lawyers in town pulls out a calendar, and I really struggled with it. I'm a full convert now. It's better. I understand why it's better. But it was helpful to have a partner who could help with that, whereas my former partner had our PC law on lockdown. He wouldn't allow it to connect to the internet. So I was like docketing on paper and handing it to an assistant who would then do an Excel file, and it just was not efficient at all. So when we first split, Anthony and I stayed in the same space as my former firm, and we shared a bookkeeper. And my former partner said to our bookkeeper one day, "How is Ashley doing? Like, is she able to feed her family?" Because he thought that I was going to crash and burn and have no money and be homeless and come running back to him. And maybe crossing the line a little bit, she basically said, "Be quiet, Ashley's making more money now than she ever has." And that is true. And simple efficiencies, being on the same page with your partner, can really help you. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Eldon. I think you have some more solid examples of efficiency type things.
Well, we'll see. First of all, to the FOLA executive, thanks for inviting me, because I love this organization. For those of you that don't know, I came to my first FOLA plenary in November of 2007. And once I got involved, I didn't know enough to get uninvolved, and once you're in, right, Bill? So anyway, my background quickly, a long time ago, I grew up in a little town called Brinston. It's 110 people, lots of cattle. Wound up somehow at U of T Law School. I'm still not sure how. I think it was a mistake, but whatever. That's where I was, and I realized Toronto wasn't for me, and I wound up back in Morrisburg, which is about 2,500 people, at a firm with 2 lawyers and 4 staff. We are, as of last week, 5 lawyers and 10 staff. Somehow we're in Morrisburg, and we're the biggest firm in the county in SD&G. So it's been good, and I have learned a few things along the way, and I'm going to share a couple with you and hopefully give you one tip that I'm hoping you will pass on to your colleagues at home. I feel a little funny talking to lawyers like yourselves who are the leaders in your bar. Whether you like it or not, you are the people that drive the practice of law, particularly for the practicing lawyers, which is who we're all about. First thing I want to talk about briefly is staff. You know, and I know, but it's good to be reminded, your staff is the key to your success. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how eloquent you are. Maybe there's a 0.5% of us that could survive without good staff, but the rest of us have to have people there who can support us. And I remember when I started in the little firm I'm at, being introduced to the lady who was going to be my assistant, and she said, "Hi, I'm Sherry, I'll be working for you." And I said, "No." I said, "You'll be working with me." And ever since then, we've had a wonderful relationship. She has now been in my office for more than 40 years. That's longer than me, even. Our second highest serving staff is 36 years, and they go on down from there through the 10 of them. So I think we can say we've done a good job at staff retention. Don't ever think that your staff work for the money. Yeah, you got to pay them. They won't work for free. But in my experience, the vast majority, particularly of legal assistants, value the team concept. They want to be part of a team. They want to know that you care what they think. when they won't switch software packages, you sometimes have to tell them they don't have a choice. But they are the key. They make you look good, and I can tell you for certain, in every successful law firm I know, there are good people doing the legwork. So again, you all know that, but tell them that. It's amazing to me how much they appreciate simply being told that I don't know what I'd do without you, or the clients, encourage your clients to do it. When clients tell the staff what a good job they did, it really means a lot. Don't go as far as I did. We take our staff on a wonderful Christmas Day long party. It tends to involve a lot of alcohol, and 7 years ago after dinner, my now 40-year assistant said to me, "We want to ask you something." I said, "Okay." I said, "You can have anything you want. Don't ever say that." She looked at me and she said, "We want to get a cat." And there's a photo somewhere of me the minute she said that with the bemused look on my face. Anyway, we now have 2 cats that live full-time at the office because one would get lonely. I tell you that just as an example of, hopefully your staff doesn't want a cat. They're fine. But they do want to know that you value them. They do want to know that you care. You can do a lot for them to make them happy and make them feel part of your team without paying them more. Raises are nice. But a few years ago, we brought in a lawyer who was local to the area, who had been with the Crown Attorney's office for years. She was bright, she was hardworking, and she was a disaster. We were either losing all the staff or her about 2 months in, and it didn't take long to say, "Sorry, you got to go. Good luck to you. Your staff are key." So recruit them and treat them well, and I'm sure you all do, but if you haven't said it lately, go back after today and tell them how much you appreciate them, and remind your colleagues to do the same. Second thing I said I would talk about, you need to value what you do, and sometimes the simplest of things doesn't really hit home until you give it a little thought, and then you go, "Oh my God, that's so simple." So many years ago, there's an invoice that hopefully you can see on the screen. A few years ago, we were running into storage problems. We didn't want to get into scanning. We had hit a firm that's been there in town in one way or another for 85 years or so, files that we had to buy a small building to store. So I thought, geez, why am I doing this for people for nothing? I'm storing their paper. I'm keeping it safe. I'm going to get it if they need it 5 years from now or whatever. So we started adding to every invoice a file retention and retrieval fee. It was $40 when we did it. It's $50 now. I can tell you, we paid for the building in 4 years. It's put all my kids through school. We have a transactional type practice, so we open and close a lot of files. But every will is a file. There's notes and a copy of the will and the drafts, every power of attorney, every real estate deal, and every client gets whatever their fee is, $50. One client in the last 15 years said, "What's that?" I said, "Well, Law Society says I should keep your stuff forever. I'm not keeping it that long. I'm going to keep it 20 years. And that's the cost of me storing the stuff in case I need it or you need it." And he looked at me and said, "Oh, that's not very much." And I said, "Thanks. Have a nice day." So just consider the value that you provide to your client and see if it's appropriate to add some kind of a cost for that. And you will be amazed, I think, at how fast $50 per file adds up. Ask your staff how many files you open and close in a year and multiply that by 50 and plan your next vacation. And I get Christmas cards. I get Christmas cards from a number of lawyers who have been doing this now for a number of years, and it's just one of those things that for some reason the light bulb went off. My partner and I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to give you one more little practical tip and then I'll stop talking, because this is another thing that my partner and I implemented a few years ago. Dan Pennington's here and scares me every time I see him. He's such a nice guy, but I'm terrified when I hear him speak, and then I got to worry about all the things I should be doing and don't do. But fraud worries me. We had a new assistant not long ago we just hired, and she got ripped off for $800 the week after we hired her. Poor thing. We got ripped off. We paid it. And she now knows, and she'll never do that again, and all the rest of the staff got reminded. But my point is, what we did Because your trust account, if you do a lot of estates particularly, or real estate, can have a lot of money in it, we have 2 trust accounts. We have a trust account that has all the estate money in it, and it is not connected to any electronic thing. We can't access it electronically. We can only write paper checks. But there's millions of dollars sitting there that I know if we do get hacked, the fraudsters can't touch it. And so it's been a nice protection for us. You know, I've done the smart thing and put all my assets in my wife's name. My partner's not married. So he's got it all in his own name, and so he was more terrified than me. But it's a nice, simple, practical tool that really is easy and doesn't cost hardly anything. Just put your estate's money in a different account, and when you need it, you write a check to yourself and put it in your regular trust and do what you need to do with it. Again, just a little practical tip. The things we should all learn and should share, and the things that you might learn in the hospitality suite, which is why I come here. So I'll stop talking now and let Gord.
Well, so now we'd like to thank you, Eldon and Ashley, for sharing those tips. And we'd like to turn it over to you guys, if you're willing to share a success or a failure. And also tonight at dinner or the hospitality suite, discuss maybe even one thing, and tomorrow at the regional breakfast, we'll discuss one thing from a regional perspective. So I'm going to put somebody, is anybody's hand up in the air? I'm going to put, oh, here we go, right here, Laura. So Laura's going to share briefly and...
Hi, Laura Oliver, FOLA board. So I'm obviously old and have,
So is Gord.
Yes, and have gone through a lot of employees over the years, and I have found a 4-month probationary period makes a huge difference, and it's only an extra month, but I believe nobody can hide their true personality for more than 4 months.
Smart.
Yeah, and I from my perspective, never ever, hire somebody without checking references. We're lawyers, but sometimes we don't do what we should have done, and that involves calling people and seeing what their perspective is. Karen.
The most important question you can ask somebody on a reference check is, would you hire them again? They'll lie to you otherwise, but if you ask them if they'll hire them again, you'll get an answer as to whether you should hire the person.
No, that's fair.
There you go. Who else? I'm going to put people in. There we go, right here. Too much Northern Ontario here.
I would just say very quickly, do not cheap out on computers, because a slow computer will cause immense stress to anyone, including even staff. We thought maybe we could get away with a cheaper computer for a clerk or a summer student, and it just makes everyone want to throw the device across the room.
Yeah, that's another one for keeping your staff happy too, right? Because they'll easily get so frustrated that they'll say these guys are too cheap to run a practice, and they'll go somewhere else.
Absolutely. Get them a nice, comfortable chair that doesn't hurt their back. Get them a good keyboard and a cordless mouse that works. And give them the tools, right, to be more
Katie?
efficient.
More Northern Ontario. The other thing that I would say is stand up for your staff. Don't let your clients yell at them.
I put that right in my retainer.
Yeah,
agreement, if you're nasty to my staff, you're gone.
I've had to have several conversations with clients where I'm like, she's just trying to help you. If you scream at her, that's not going to happen. And sometimes it's like they're stunned. They're like, what do you mean?
It's so important.
I find that goes a very long way with staff, is when you stand up for them and you say, you can't treat people like that. And then don't be afraid to fire them if they're screaming at your staff.
Absolutely.
No, that's an excellent thing. I attended a presentation years ago with a judge who was a bigger-than-life personality. And when she was in private practice, she just had one assistant. They made a list at the end of every month of the 3 clients they didn't want to work for anymore. And if anybody's name was on both lists, they just sent them a letter and said, call someone else. Because she would keep clients that had lots of money maybe and cut them a little slack, and the assistant would like people and whatever. But if anybody was on both lists, they went. And she said it was really cathartic, and her assistant valued it.
It's a very good form of stress relief to fire the troublemakers.
Yep.
So Alan Weinperl, I'm on the FOLA board, but I opened up my own practice here in Hamilton about 22 years ago, and when I started, I guess I would say I was quite rigid about, staff had to be in, and I wasn't going to offer them flexibility. I wouldn't offer them like 4 days a week or working from home or anything like that. And I lost a very good assistant because she had 3 children and her husband traveled for work, and so she just couldn't manage it all. And I wouldn't offer her the flexibility, so she went on to work for an insurance company. And nowadays, thinking of even before COVID, but especially since COVID, offering some flexibility to people, especially with young families and stuff like that, I think is so important. So if you can do that, it's better than money to them. It's far more valuable that they be able to go to their parent-teacher interview or whatever's coming up right now at school. You know what I mean? That's key stuff, and I think you get to retain people much more easily doing that. So.
Yeah. One sec. We got over here.
Yeah, just quickly on the. Oh, sorry. Angus Bickerton, president with Leeds and Grenville Law Association. People are really focusing quite rightly, particularly for a small firm, on the needs of having great staff. And in terms of you could hire 4, 5, 10 excellent staff members, but they've also got to gel as a group. And Eldon used the word team. And the way that my note is specific, the way that we handled in our office, and actually Eldon and I were speaking about this yesterday, is that when my current firm formed, we were in talks, my partner and I, in February of 2020. We made our public announcement on March 11th. The order in council came down March 13th. And so we were building a culture right out of the ashes, and we decided to put our lead staff member, we named her our office manager, and she was responsible for all hiring decisions we would have to approve, but we could not trump her. If she didn't want them, we wouldn't hire them. So we put a lot of trust into one person, but it also insulates the lawyers from any kind of political maneuvering and that sort of thing, which both of us had experienced previously. So having a clear hierarchy that is really not open to being without any go-arounds, unless it's a complaint about the person immediately above you, and there's only one of those, so it really never happens. But the point being is that you're insulated from that, and the staff also have a very clear idea of what the boundaries are, so that they do work together and they trust each other, and it's really worked. But this is with a staff of 4 or 5 people. It wouldn't necessarily work with one of 100. So it depends on the firm, but that's been our success story.
Angus, do they go to her, to complain about you? Yes. Okay. Just checking.
That was the most significant thing to come out of Leeds and Grenville in a long time.
So every December sort of winter holiday, I let my family law clerk and my child protection clerk each fire one of my clients, with very few exceptions. Sometimes, the timing isn't right and you just can't do it. But they find that quite rewarding. And then we were able to start the new year with a fresh slate. And then we get another one for the following year.
And again, I think that type of thing, however you might do it, it makes them feel like they are part of the team. They have a say in what's going on. So it's important.
Well, we've got...
It's really important, too, because the work we do is so traumatizing, and not just for us. We all joke at our office that the office therapist is on speed dial. And Sherry's probably sick of hearing from all of us, but we all make sure we take time.
Just switching the focus more to maybe new lawyers, especially in rural areas. I was working in municipal law in Toronto for my articles. Sorry, I'm Morgan from Kenora. And I saw a posting on Facebook looking for someone with family law experience, 3+ years, and I happened to have a connection to Kenora through family. And I almost didn't even reach out
And I asked my mom, should I do this? Because I have none of this experience. I was called for maybe 2 months at that point and had never touched any of the areas they were looking for. But I reached out and it ended up working out, and now I've been in Kenora working there and really enjoying that experience for 3 or so years now. So from a hiring perspective, I guess maybe if you're open to mentoring or having someone with less experience, be clear about that in your hiring brief or package and say, listen, maybe we're not holding that deadline or that experience to a high standard. If you're really interested in this work and this location, reach out to us and don't be afraid to see where that might go.
One of the great things in North Bay for me is being able to call anybody. And again, one of the great things about this program is that I've met a whole bunch of people. Eldon, I've texted Eldon before and asked him questions, Ashley often. And, to Robert and Essex, so talking about, a message board or whatever it may be, we've actually got a group of about 7 lawyers on a WhatsApp group text, and a lot of it's inappropriate, but,
Hey, that one's semi-appropriate.
However, there are questions that are asked often about, hey, have you ever seen this? Have you ever done this? And I think there's a great opportunity there to connect with people. And everybody knows you can call people, and you should call people in your own areas, but don't be afraid to connect with. I don't have really anything to offer. I'm just trying to take what the smart people offer, right? But don't be afraid to connect with people.
I think the lawyer group chat provides, professional assistance, but some mental health relief as well, because you can share in the struggles and the trials and tribulations. Anthony and I have had a group chat that he won't admit the name, but it's got a really cool name that I can tell you later. But again, Anthony won't admit to it. But that thing is, I had to put it on mute because it would go off all day, just sharing stories about what happened in court, and even just preparing each other, like, ooh, careful, Justice Ramsey's in a bad mood today, tread lightly, just stuff like that. It really helps with your practice.
Our time is just about up, but for those of you in big firms, you've got colleagues to go to. For those of you in small firms like I was, never, ever, ever, and tell the young lawyers in your areas not to be afraid to call you for help. I used to love it. I would call some of the senior lawyers when I started, and I would just ask them a question, and most of them didn't know the answer, but half an hour later, they would have gone and looked it up for me. It was great. I started to know who I could do that to, just throw the seed out there. But it's really important to be collegial, and we've started to lose it with the way real estate operates now. You don't see anybody anymore and stuff. So especially for those of us in smaller rural centers, it's important to keep in touch.
Thanks to you guys for allowing us to do this, and it's selfish of us because we get to learn something as well. Please take the opportunity at dinner tonight to just even talk about one thing where you've been successful or failed at, and you might get something, and then bring it to the group tomorrow, and enjoy the rest of the time. Thanks very much.